Okay, so hey everybody. This is going to be a very quick video meant to illustrate how to install a VM when the VM is given to you as an appliance. And so the example I'm going to use is a Kali Linux appliance that I've downloaded and have on my computer. So that's the first step, is to get the appliance. Typically it's in a format where the file ends in like OVA. There's several sort of standard formats, but VirtualBox understands OVA formats. So that's what we're going to use. All right. So let me first go to this will be the 3600 web page, 852 students. You'll see similar things on your class web page as well as the 3600. I just wanted to step into this page, which gives some background on virtual machines. We went through some of this in class. The starting point is obviously to install VirtualBox, but make sure that you take a look at certain portions of the manual, in particular where it talks about installing a VM, where it talks about, let's see, where it talks about configuration, and trying to get to, here we go, guest editions. So guest editions is an additional download that would be installed. It provides support for the host OS, and after we have installed a VM, we typically would then install, let's see if I can go to my VM to show you. Well, it's called guest editions, and so guest editions is would be installed, or the file for it would come with VirtualBox when you install VirtualBox, and but we have to specifically install guest editions from our VM. And so guest editions basically provides drivers that would run within your VM, which is different than the extensions that we talked about. Okay, so once you've installed VirtualBox, you would see this window here. You would not see VM1 or Core VM. So those are two VMs that I've already created. What I'm going to do now is import the appliance. And so this is basically the what you would also be doing. And this assumes that you've downloaded the OVA file. Okay, so go to File and Import. Okay, and we want to browse. Now I need to remember where I put it. All right, there it is. So Kali Linux 2002.4 VirtualBox, 64-bit, and it's format open virtualization format archive, which typically is referred to as an OVA file. So I'm going to select that, open it. Okay, so now sort of a pain in the neck here is my display. It's not showing the very bottom. Let's see, how can I do this? So it won't let me resize it either. I'm going to pause the video while I fix this. All right, so I resized my display so that I can see this entire window here. Okay, so we've specified the OVA file, and then at the bottom we're going to say next. And this gives us a chance to review what we're seeing. Okay, so it's been set up for 2 CPUs, 2 gig of memory, with a specific network adapter. So one of the few problems that can occur when you import a VM appliance is if the OVA file, so if the appliance had a predefined network interface, like in this case, it's saying Intel Pro 1000, because it needs to match the name of the network card on your guest OS. So after we do the import, we may have to go back and fix that. All right, so I'm going to say import. Requires that you agree to the terms and conditions. Agree. Okay, and this will take a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording again. Okay, so it finished importing that file, and this is what we're looking at now. So basically, we have a VM that is all set to start. Let's take a look at the network. Well, so let me say a few words about configuration using VirtualBox. So there's 2 ways or paths for configuring things. In File, these options here will give you an interface to configure at the sort of a global scale. So all the configuration will be applied to every single VM that you have created. And then to configure a specific VM, you would select it and then go to settings. And so we'll just look at the configuration that came with our appliance. So Kali is derived from Debian. So if we were to be working with a Ubuntu appliance, it would say Ubuntu 64-bit. If we look at advanced, we see that clipboard is bidirectional, which is super useful. So you can cut and paste from your VM to something outside of your VM. Okay, and then system. So we've configured 2 gig of memory, which is on the low side, but it will work with this Kali distro. So we've selected 2 processors and selected hardware virtualization. So the display is using a fairly large amount of memory, 128 megabytes. We have configured 1 monitor. If you configure a second, when you start the VM, you'll basically see 2, it looks like instances of the virtual machine, but really it's just 2 views into the same OS. So scale factor, this is sort of convenient if you need to make things that you see in your VM larger or smaller. And I usually click enable 3D acceleration, so I'm not sure why they did not do that. Storage, so that looks fine. Network. Okay, so by default, we're given what's called a NAT network, and we'll briefly talk about that once we start the VM, but we'll have another discussion that focuses just on the virtual networking choices that are available to us. All right, so I'll go ahead and start the VM. And I believe the by default, the user ID and password is going to be Kali and Kali. It's pretty small. All righty. So I'm going to pause the video here for a second. Okay, so after a couple resizings, we see that it's able to use the entire display. Things are pretty small, and so we can go into configuration, and some configuration that we do, we have to shut off the VM, but if we want to just change the display and the size, we could do that while it's running. So I'm going to basically double the size. See if this is going to work. Okay, that looks a little better. So when it first came up, there wasn't that terminal session. So just you can see that there's an icon for a terminal, or if you do right click on your mouse, you get a window and open terminal. There's a ton of configuration you can do. So you can tweak things however you like. Okay, so we have a working VM, and so because this is an appliance, whoever created this appliance, and I got this from the Kali website, they have a number of appliances sort of prepackaged. So it has all of the cybersecurity tools already installed. There will be a number of items that we're going to want to install, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. Alrighty, so you should be seeing my Kali VM screen. So one thing that I did, which I usually do after I do create a new VM, or after I set up a new Linux machine, do a update of all packages. So we'll be talking more about the apt command, but what you can do is if you do a sudo apt update, and it's saying basically what it does is it looks at what's installed, and then it looks out in the correct apt repos to see what's newer, and it tells us that there are some updates if we wish to update our system. And I usually do, again, you have to be careful when you choose to do an upgrade. So there's two steps. Update is it identifies what packages need to be refreshed, and it also downloads those packages. And then if to actually do a upgrade to basically install the updates, you would do a sudo apt upgrade. And this typically takes a while. So I'm going to end the video here with that. So to summarize, we showed how to import a VM appliance, and our example here was a Kali appliance.